let's cue the music and start that word chat.
Welcome, everybody. So good to see you as always. Very excited about today's show. I know I say that every time, but I truly am because we have an old friend, a good friend of the show, Mignon Fogarty, who is not just here as a guest, but is here for a launch party for an update to the classic Grammar Girl book, the Grammar Devotional. And the new book has been recast as the Grammar Daily. So we'll chat with Mignon and about what's new as we celebrate. So if you have party hats like Mignon has, or if you have a drink you want to have, or snacks or whatever, we can't share them because we're remote, but we can all enjoy in our own way. Mignon, as I said, is a good friend of that word chat. She's been on, I think, 4 times. I didn't go back and count. A couple of times she's helped us with our Word of the Year episodes. She's the author of 7 books about language, including Grammar Girl's Quick and Dirty Tips for Better Writing. She's 5-time winner of the Best Education Podcast and the Podcast Awards, an inductee into the Podcasting Hall of Fame, founder of the Quick and Dirty Tips podcast network, and she's taught media entrepreneurship at the University of Nevada. And along with that word chat, she has appeared as a guest expert on the Oprah Winfrey Show and the Today Show. So welcome, Mignon. How's it going?
Thank you so much for having me, Mark. I'm so excited to be here. You are my book launch party. I have my little hat. I'm ready to go.
Right. And have you checked the numbers yet for the book?
No, I haven't. I actually looked at the ranking this morning before I started promoting it, and then I haven't looked yet today, believe it or not.
Okay. Well, it's not a new book, right? It's a revamping and retitling of a previous book. So, do you want to tell us how that came about?
Yeah, so the Grammar Devotional came out in 2009, and it's always been my favorite book. It's I should grab this. This is the advanced reading copy. It's a tip a day book. It's 365 tips, and it's got puzzles and cartoons and quizzes. It's my favorite book. It never sold well at all.
Oh.
And it was, like nobody
I see I've got 2 on my shelf, actually.
You close to my heart are the people who actually bought this book. And we've always felt like the title confused people. So it was Grammar Devotional. And anytime I said that to people, they would ask, is that a religious book? What is that? And they were confused. And so we just felt like it really could benefit from a new title. And so I've been bringing that idea up for years, and it's so rare to be able to do that to a book. I'm incredibly grateful to Macmillan for letting me update the book and agreeing to do it. And then, we said, instead of like, well, okay, let's change the name, I was like, let's update the whole thing, because grammar, believe it or not, things have changed since 2009 when it came out. And so it's actually in some ways it's a significant update. In other ways, it's not a significant update. I mean, I think that if you already have this book, the original, you don't want the new one. But, there were 1,000 small changes, like literally like 1,000
Really?
small changes. Yeah. In addition to like the big ones, because once you start going through it, you realize, well, if they're going to let me change things, I would say this differently now. I could rewrite that sentence. I could make it better, so they may have regretted letting me go loose on it. But
Yeah.
it's
Well,
a better book.
we got two things. First of all, I wanted to say I brought some bubbly. So we got this. This is sparkling. It's from Champagne, sparkling wine, and we got it from like a healthy wine thing, and it's like a small vintner in France. And my wife, it doesn't seem very bubbly. My wife is convinced it's just a big wine cooler, but we haven't tried it yet. And I noticed I thought, well, I'm going to open it for the show, and I noticed this doesn't even have a cork. It's got a screw top. I hope it's a screw top. But here we go.
Get the little champagne for the.
yes. Kicking it off. Let's see. Uh-oh. Yeah, no, it's a. I need a bottle opener.
How funny.
Oh my gosh.
Well, while you do that, saved for this party,
Yeah.
I have not yet opened my box of author copies of the book. It's been sitting on my table for a week, and I thought I would do it here. So let's open this box together. How's that?
Yes, absolutely.
I just showed you the advanced review copy, but these are the real ones.
Mhm.
And a funny story about the Grammar Devotional, the first printing was wrong. So when I did this for the Grammar Devotional, it had red and black ink, and the ink was reversed on the first folio, the first 12 or 16 pages.
Oh,
so
really?
We could find anything in here.
So it was like, so you're saying it was like red text and black headings? Oh, wow.
Yeah. I still have a few of them that I consider them collector's items.
Yeah, sure.
So here they are, a box full of books.
This
is it.
The Grammar Daily, yay!
It's interesting. It feels rough. It's like it has a texture to it. It's not smooth. It's kind of gritty, actually.
Here's this is the advanced reader copy.
And yeah, there's no red text in this one. It's all black, so there's no chance for a reverse printing. So there you are.
Yeah.
You open the book with me.
Right. If anybody else has their book, we could all like open them up and go through and see if there's any issues in the printing. Where a lot of us are copy editors, so
Thank you.
One possibility. So is there any? So you said there were 1,000 changes. Are there some big changes or a lot of little changes?
There are probably 800, 900 little changes, and then the bigger changes. I had notes. I didn't bring them. Now I'm gonna have to do it from memory.
Okay.
So here's one that you will all, I'm sure, be familiar with. But since the book came out, the AP style book said it's okay to use over to mean more than.
Oh, okay.
The original book said you shouldn't use over to mean more than if you're an Associated Press writer. Another example I remember is that you know how when people always complain to me when someone says, oh, my son graduated college, my son graduated high school.
Yeah.
Oh, it should be graduated from.
Mhm.
Well, back in 2009, that was even more of an issue. So in 2009, I said, you should not say graduated high school. It is graduated from, and now, however many years later this is, it's becoming a much more accepted way. I can no longer say you absolutely shouldn't say that. It's an area of language change. It's evolving. Our grandparents said, my son was graduated from high school. People at my age say my son graduated from high school, and now a lot of people say my son graduated high school. So it's a really interesting and active area of language change, and so I updated the book to reflect that too.
Right. I think it's fun. It's funny if you observe the language, you hear all the pet peeves and the things that sort of are there forever. And then, but sometimes I hear other things from young people that people are saying it this way, or even as an editor, I'll read sort of this sort of way of doing things that I haven't heard before. So it's interesting when you observe it, how quickly language can change.
It is. I think I updated the singular they section too to
Sure.
that it's, oh, I remember the words I used this time are, it's unremarkable, which,
Hmm.
is not what I would have said before. And then the sensitive, this was also the first time I worked with a sensitivity reader on a book.
Right.
And that was super interesting and fun. And the reader suggested I mention neopronouns, which I did. And I probably would not have thought of that on my own. So that was really helpful.
Yeah. So, was there anything insensitive in the book, or anything that like struck you and surprisingly that the
Yeah.
person
I mean,
flagged?
it was actually such an interesting experience because at first I was kind of resistant to working with a sensitivity reader, not because I think they don't have value, but I very stupidly thought, I know this stuff,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
this is what I do, like I'm all about writing. I keep up with these things. And no, okay, that is not true at all. So first of all, it's a sensitivity reader, like always take advantage of it if you get the chance, because it's another set of eyes on your book. That
Yeah.
the reader was also a fabulous copy editor, caught a whole bunch of commas in the wrong place, you know. And I'm sure they were thinking like, what, grammar girl can't properly use a comma? What's going on here? But found a lot of misused commas. And then there were things that I knew that I just missed. For example, as I'm going through it proofreading, every section has a title, it has a header, right?
Hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
I started skimming over the headers and I wasn't looking at the headers as closely as I was looking at all the text I was editing. And I missed a header that had said like crazy something, this or that, and I was taking
Hmm.
out instances of the word crazy because, you don't need to use that anymore. And we changed it to wild. But I just completely missed it. It's not that I didn't know, but I just missed it. And
Right.
then the things I didn't know were actually the funniest one. So, I grew up on Schoolhouse Rock,
Hmm.
and, we described him with adjectives, and that song I know, front and back. And so in the section on adjectives, I had an example sentence about a hairy bear, right? Because he was a
Yeah.
hairy bear. He was
Hairy
a scary.
bear, scary bear. Sure.
He described him with
It's
adjectives.
right.
Well, turns out I
We could do a
didn't
sing along if you wanted to. Sorry. Go on.
know that. I didn't know that hairy bear is a way it's something people use to describe other people in sort of the gay community. Like somebody
Oh.
might be a hairy bear. I had no idea. And so the sensitivity reader said, when younger people are reading this, they're not going to be thinking about Schoolhouse Rock.
Oh, right. Right,
So
because I mean it's still around, but young people wouldn't be as familiar with it because it wasn't that regular Saturday companion.
no, and
Wow.
this other meaning is apparently quite common,
Right.
to know. So, it was fabulous. They caught things, I never would have caught like that. So it was
Yeah.
a wonderful experience.
Right. That's interesting. So this I just looked at the date on this 2009. So it's
Mhm.
been 14 years. So it seems like just yesterday. And actually, I looked. I saw I had two copies on my desk on my bookshelf. I mean, and I looked. I wasn't sure why, and I looked in one, and it's not even mine. It's my daughter's, which I'll have to give to her when I see her at Christmas. But you signed it to Elizabeth, which is when we first met. You did a thing at Ohio State, and I went and got a copy of your book. And
And didn't you
I mean, hmm?
didn't you take me to Jenny's ice cream?
No, you have this theory that I did. I'm afraid that's not true. I wish I had. No, I took you to Giuseppe's Ritrovo, and we had Italian, the great Italian restaurant near me. But I did not introduce you to Jenny's. And this was a different trip. You came and did a thing at Columbus School for Girls, which must have been. Is that when we first met?
Ah,
Now I'm not sure. Anyway, I met you twice. Once at the Ohio State event, and then we had dinner one evening while you were at. But no, we never had Jenny's. But had we hung out a little bit more, I would have taken you to Jenny's. Those of you who came to Columbus.
The details are lost to the mists of time.
Yes. And of course, we originally met on Twitter. And that's, I wanted to ask you about this. So you've completely left Twitter. But, for me, Twitter was kind of a transformative thing. I mean, it connected me with you and with other people in the Word community in ways that I wouldn't have been able to connect with people before. And so leaving it, and I've left it too, I'm still there and I'll retweet occasionally, but I don't actually generate tweets. It's kind of difficult to like give that up and move on. And you had, like 6 million followers, or I don't know how many couple of 100,000 followers.
270-ish thousand.
Yeah.
I loved Twitter. I was there from nearly the very beginning, if not the very beginning, and I missed it terribly. I still miss parts of it, but it just doesn't, it's not a place that I want to be anymore. I've worked really, really hard to move people, to help people move to other platforms. I did all sorts of explainers on how to move to Mastodon, and I've been giving away my Blue Sky codes, and I'm trying to be everywhere. So if a new one pops up, I'll use it. Like I was on Pebble, but that just shut down. I can't feel good about providing content that is a reason that makes people want to be there. I want to make content elsewhere so it's easier for people to go somewhere else. I'm actually incredibly furious right now because they say they're going to sell accounts that are inactive, and I can't lose my accounts. It's my brand and my name. And so I feel like I've just started, I'm going to post like something really basic once a week. So I actually have started posting just so I don't lose the accounts and have like, impersonation problems. And I'm angry that I have to do that. But it was my favorite online home, but I'm really happy elsewhere. People who follow me know I love Mastodon. It's sort of the place I hang out most, but I'm really enjoying Blue Sky a lot now, like more and more. I'm really enjoying Blue Sky, and Threads is fun. They're all different. Like people really, because Threads is from Instagram, photos do better there. But like when I promoted this, like the post about this show did better on Blue Sky. It's like they're all like different. So interesting.
Yeah, it is. And Mastodon still confuses me. I don't feel 100% comfortable there, but I try to use that regularly. And Blue Sky is just like I went into Blue Sky a couple of weeks ago and I thought, oh my God, it took me to Twitter, and I backed out and went in again and oh no, wait, this is Blue Sky. It just looks like Twitter. So
it's very Twitter-like. And it's funny because one thing I liked about Mastodon, like I never used the algorithm on Twitter. I had extensive lists that I used. And so I have lists on Mastodon, and it's kind of the same. But I do use the popular with friends thing on Blue Sky, and it is kind of nice. Like an algorithm that's good is nice because it's interesting for you. The Twitter algorithm just was never that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And so, and I never use the Twitter algorithm either, but it's nice to, if it's truly friends, then it's, you get some good stuff that way. My wife brought me a bottle opener. So let me see if I can do this, which is kind of scary to open bubbly thing. This a pop top. No pop, no reaction, but all right. But anyway, cheers and congratulations on your book launch.
Thank you.
To the Grammar Daily.
Andy Hollenbach just pointed out 2024 is a leap year. So it's creating a problem for the 365 daily tips.
Oh, you did. So it came out in 2009. You didn't. Nowhere in here do you account for that? Maybe you can you'll have to on Leap Day tweet a February 29th tip, maybe about leap year.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I will.
Yeah. So getting back to Twitter, is it harder to, I mean, this is a relaunch, so it's not like it's a new book and a new thing, but is it harder to promote without
Yes,
having the Twitter
no.
thing?
I never found Twitter never drove traffic for me. Like, it never drove traffic to my website. Like, if I would
Oh,
post things to my website, it would hardly drive any traffic. I think it did drive some sales, probably. I'm sure it did. But the two things it was most useful for me was community, the writer and editor community, and just talking to friends every day, being someone who works at home. Even before the pandemic, I worked at home alone. So it was nice to have a community. And then actually for the media, like, I got a lot of media interviews from journalists who saw me on Twitter,
mhm,
so, like in the New York Times and stuff like that. So it really was great for getting attention from the media.
mhm, right.
I haven't found that anywhere else.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I think you've got to, you're known, you're a name now that if people are looking for advice on uh, grammar and usage, then they'll hopefully they'll know to go to you now. Um, so I'm curious. Do you know who you've got? Okay, you've got the Grammar Devotional. You've got Quick and Dirty Tips for Better Writing. You've got all these. I don't know if these are still available.
Yeah,
The 101
they
things. Yeah, good.
are.
And what else? Oh, we
And
got.
the,
I
the
can't forget Peeve Wars, your card game.
yeah,
Uh,
and the Ultimate Writing Guide for Students.
and the Ultimate Writing Guide for Students, which is great,
Yeah,
great gift for students with
yeah.
lots of orange text.
We refer to it as the Orange Book, and
Yeah,
not surprisingly, that's the sort of perennial bestseller.
is it? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Interesting. Well, and it
there's
makes sense. It's probably a great gift for graduating seniors in high school.
yeah, and even like some teachers use it, so we'll see big
Oh yeah.
purchases at the beginning of a semester. Like, if a class, you can tell that some classes have assigned it.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, and I mean, it certainly does fill that role as a beginning grammar book, and it's more fun, and it's laid out in a simple, sensible way. So yeah, get that book. So are you going to update any of these other books?
Yeah, actually, the first two, the Ultimate Writing Guide for Students and
Oh, really?
Grammar Girls Quick and Dirty Tips for Better Writing, I updated both of those this year too. They're not getting new
Oh,
names, and they're
mhm.
not getting a launch. They're not going to get a new ISBN or a new date or anything like that, but they have been updated so that they're current and can continue to be enduring and, like, not feel outdated when you get them.
Yeah. Hmm.
Oh my gosh, the student guide had a chapter on writing on the internet, and it was like painfully quaint. So I actually replaced that entire chapter.
Oh, wow. Is it still writing on the internet and just
It is
more updates? So you'll have to
completely,
update it again
yeah.
and use.
And if any of you are writing books, I would encourage you not to put in pop culture references, because also those were some of them, like, okay, TiVo doesn't exist anymore.
Evo.
Yeah, so.
Great. So I'm curious, who's your audience? Can you tell? I mean, obviously teachers and students are going to get this. Is there a difference in the audience in the different books?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Grammar Daily is more for word lovers, and it's more of a gift book because it is like a tip a day calendar. So, it makes a great gift for your kid's English teacher or your mom, who's always, corrected your grammar and things like that. So that's sort of it's like a word lover gift audience. And I think the obviously the student one is like largely teachers and people who are focused on improving their English, because it sounds more like a how-to book.
Mhm.
Yeah, and the original one, I'm not sure who buy. I think it's probably people who feel like the student book is for students, but
Mhm.
they want something from me, so they're probably thinking it's more something for adults, which it is. I think the Ultimate Writing Guide for Students is my most complete book. But it has that whole section in the beginning about parts of speech and things that you really kind of learn in
Right.
school.
What is a noun? And yeah.
Yeah. And I think the quick and dirty tips for better writing is more for people. The content is very similar, but it doesn't have that schoolish kind of content in it.
I just happened to open the quick and dirty tips, and I see on era you've got the heading "The Grammar Girl Era."
Longer than
That's
people
good.
might have imagined.
Yes, yeah. Well, this is 2009, and this is getting a little yellow. I'm a little bit, I'm not sure. I'm happy with the publisher for I don't know what kind of paper this is. But
cheap paper, huh?
yeah, so you'll have to, but we'll have to look forward to the update on that.
Yeah, I'm so grateful to have been able to update them. Like, it's really rare to be able to do that. And
yeah, it's the first time you've updated them.
yeah, and significant updates. I had a new editor for it. We went through multiple rounds. Like I said, they got a sensitivity reader. It was a full revision.
Right. Oh yeah, and I imagine there's even more. I mean, just the Grammar Daily is shorter, 365 pages. You probably had more for reason for a sensitivity reader in the bigger books, right?
It was as much work as writing a whole new book in the end.
Really?
Updating those 3, I think it was about the same amount of work. I do want people to know the new versions of those other 2 books aren't out yet. I don't know when they're going to come out. It has to it's going to depend on just when they run out of the ones they have printed now. So
Okay. All right. And you haven't done since COVID struck, you haven't done public appearances to promote books, book signings, things like that. Do you miss that?
I do. I really miss. I would love to go on another book tour. Those were just the best experiences. I really hope to go out and tour again someday. But yeah, for now I'm a Zoom girl.
Yeah, yeah, and it's great. It's nice how it coincided with the era of Zoom that we have this option
Yeah.
to do things. Yeah.
And it's great. I mean, I can go to so many more things I wouldn't have gone to.
Mm.
I can go to my author friends' book signings, if they're in Boston, but if it's streaming, I can still participate. I actually think it's much more inclusive to have a Zoom element to everything.
Oh, sure, sure. I remember years ago I was invited to a book launch party in Manhattan, and I thought, oh, how cool to go to a book launch, but I'm not going to go to Manhattan for somebody's book. But obviously on Zoom, I have that option.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about and really if people have questions, this is I feel like this is a party where I'm sort of talking too much. So I mean, if anybody has any questions or wants to say anything, or if anybody has any stories about what the book has meant to them, or if anybody wants to share whatever cocktail they're drinking, just let us know, and we'll, we'd like to, usually we get 1 or 2 or 3 questions in the show. We're happy if this is more participatory, and if anybody has anything to say or want to talk about, just let's.
I see the question in the chats. I'm not seeing the entire chat. It kind of goes by, but I think Melissa Allen's idea was the sensitivity reader, and that was my publisher's idea. And
Yes.
I'm happy they did it.
Okay, you're not supposed to look at the chat. We always tell her. I've got to tell you that. Don't look at the chat because it's so interesting, and you'll just want to sit there and look at the chat and type away. But we also like people to ask their questions and come on camera and ask their questions. So let's I don't know, maybe if Heather's ready, maybe we have a question. Oh, she mentioned the sensitivity reader.
We do. Well, and Karen had a question as well. Karen, if you want to unmute and ask.
Let's see if I can get my camera to work. I might not be able to. But I was wondering, Mignon, I noticed that you arrange your books by color. And Mark, you seem to arrange your books by subject.
Alphabetical on this side.
Okay. And I was wondering, I've always been curious about those who organize their books by subject, by color. How are you a visual? you have a visual memory? Is that why your books are organized by color?
It's kind of funny you should ask. So I never ever arranged my books by color until the last time I moved. And I just had all these boxes and I was putting them on the shelf and I just thought I would try doing it by color. Also because I think for a Zoom background, we're all thinking about our Zoom
Our visual, right?
now. And so I thought that might look nicer and more interesting. And I do find that it's easier for me to find books. When I lived in the same place for 15 years or whatever, I knew where my books were. But now that I'm in a new place and they were all going to be in a different place anyway, I can remember what color a book was and find it. Although I had an instance where I couldn't because I was like, that book is red. I know that book is red. And I looked at red books and it wasn't there. Well, it turned out the front cover was red, but the spine was black. And so it took forever to find that book.
I was wondering about that. Mark, so you go alphabetically by author?
Alphabetically by author on this side. So Mignon is, when she was here, was sort of, between How to Write a Sentence by Stanley Fish. And, and like this one, I'm proud of one of the few copies in North America of Make Grammar Great Again, which is published in Australia and hasn't been published in the U.S. And so that's by Meredith Forrester. And so we have between Fish and Forrester, Fogarty. But yeah, those are, and you know what? Maybe I should try. Maybe next show I'll have these all by color, and then maybe it's easier to find things that way because I will remember the color. I don't know. But this side is all reference. So AP style books, all style books, Chicago, Yahoo, style guide, then dictionaries, usage guides, and on the way down. So that's more by topic on that side.
So those are all books that you use for quote unquote work, right? Do you do the same sort of organization for personal books?
That's a great question. No, I probably by topic more than anything, but also it depends where the books are. So we have a bookcase downstairs of music books. And then we have sort of cool books in the living room, the kind that you would want to, not that we have guests come in and look at our books, but, kind of the more showy books, the more ostentatious books, and then other things in other rooms. So older books in shabbier parts of the house, I guess. How about you, Mignon? How do you do your books outside your office and Zoom background?
I actually don't have they're all the same. They're actually all by color. I have 5 bookcases. I have 2 more on the other side of the camera that you can't see. Actually, and those aren't organized at all. Like I just threw them there. They're not even all standing up. There's some leaning out sideways, and it's a mess. It's a mess. But those are the books I don't use as often. They were like the last ones to get unpacked.
So we talked about updating how much things have changed since in the past 15 years. The latest thing is artificial intelligence, which is brand new. I don't imagine you've gotten any of that into the book updates, have you, or have you managed to?
No, I've been asked to include it in my last 3 courses. So I also do courses for LinkedIn Learning, which is a big thing I've been doing the last 2 or 3 years. Mm-hmm. And I'm working on one about plain language right now and one about advanced grammar. And they asked me to include an AI element in those. And the AP style course I just finished for Reagan Communications, they asked me to add AI. And I think I had about 15 minutes at the end about AI. And because I've been researching it so much, it is just fascinating. I've actually been following it for a year. The first time I blogged about it was on my own blog was in December of 2022 when I blogged about ChatGPT recommending a book to me that didn't exist.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I asked it to give me books with librarians as protagonists, and it made up a bunch of books. So I blogged about hallucinations, and I've been just so fascinated by it. But I haven't felt like I had time to learn about it. But then when I was forced to do it for these courses, I was like, I need to write about this. So I actually just started an email newsletter called AI Side Quest, because it's not my main job. And I actually really should not, I should not be starting a new newsletter. But I couldn't resist. I had to, and I'm learning so much. I want to share it all.
Yeah. So what are you learning? I mean, I've been, I think every show now we've got to at least mention AI at some point. And because it is like everybody's sort of talking about it, wondering about it, starting to use it, wondering how to use it. What's the breakdown in a nutshell of what it means to writers and editors?
Yeah, I mean, I do worry about job loss for writers and editors. Like it can do a lot. um, it like you can, for example, like I'm writing this plain language course, right? I'm making 25 3-minute videos to teach you all about plain language. And then the last one that my AI tip is going to be like, and you can put any piece of writing into Chat GPT and say, rewrite this using the principles of plain language. And it does it for you. Like
Yeah.
maybe you need to learn the things in the last 23 videos. I mean, I think it's good to know the principles. I think it's great that people want to learn them. I think people still should learn them, but if you're really not that interested and you're just required to do it for work, like it can get you probably 95% of the way there. I think for people like me who like to write, I mean, I'm going to keep writing. I'm not using it to write my blog posts or my AI newsletter. I'm still like writing, and I'm going to write and think I do a better job than it could. But for people who don't like to write, or for people who are doing really, I don't know, boilerplate stuff, rote stuff, I think it can do a lot of the work. And so I think editors are going to need to think about how they bring value to beyond the ticky-tacky things that we all do. I'm just thinking so much about, I think what we can do is trust, relationships, personality. People don't always hire someone because it's the cheapest way to do things or the most efficient way to do things. You need to make sure people feel good about working with you and trust you and feel like they're getting warmth and value and wisdom from you that, an AI couldn't provide. So I think that focusing on the things that you provide as a human is just essential moving forward. It's always been important. It's always been part of marketing, but I think it's more important than ever.
It's interesting. And I kind of wonder if in a few years, I mean, the AI is getting so good that won't it be able to at least provide the illusion of warmth and humanity?
Yeah, no, it can. It's amazing. So in my most recent email newsletter, I showed how you can input your writing and it evaluates the tone. And, if you're giving it a prompt, I don't like the output it gave, I might say, well, make it more fun, and then see what I get. And that may or may not work. But you can put a piece of writing in that you like and say, how would you describe the tone of this? And it gave me 8 paragraphs describing in detail the exact tone and what contributes to the tone. And even though I know these things don't think, when I read it, I felt like it understands me. I feel seen. And I had to shake myself and say, this thing does not know me. It does not see me. It just is evaluating my writing. But I absolutely believe people are going to form relationships with AIs. I mean, they already are. You've read about it, but I can see why.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know my mom has great conversations at the end of the night with Alexa, says good night, and Alexa says good night back. And my mom's very polite. She always says thank you to Alexa. And so
Yeah.
that prompts other things. But and there was that movie years ago, I don't remember what it was called, about somebody falling in love with an AI, which yeah, you can definitely see that. But I mean, I think it's interesting what it says about writing. In most writing, I mean, I think we can honestly say that anything that ChatGPT does is derivative, because that's what it is. It takes what exists and says what's the most likely thing to work in this situation, and I'll spit it back. But it also, I still think you can reverse that, and you can realize that so much of what we do is derivative. So much of what we do is informed by other people. And sometimes there are simple tasks that maybe, it's okay to use the artificial intelligence to help us out.
Right. Yeah. A couple of the things I pointed out that were in my piece of writing that an AI couldn't do. It's like, well, I listened to the Beatles song that was created with AI, the new Beatles song, and I didn't really like it, and I said that in the newsletter, like, AI can't listen to the Beatles and tell you its opinion. And, the personal anecdotes, I think, if you're a writer, not so much for editors, but if you're a writer, personal anecdotes, I think, I'm thinking about how to use them more, just to be like, hi, look at me. I'm human, I swear.
Right, right, right. So, have you thought about using it to write a podcast? Have you asked it to write a podcast episode and been impressed with the results? Or?
I mean, I think like every writer, I've tried that, said, write exactly what I write and see, because I want to see how good or bad it is. How afraid should I be? And
Yeah.
it did not, I would not have used it. It was a terrible job,
Mm.
but that was like 3 or 4 months ago. So I don't know, maybe it's better, but I still don't think it's going to capture the whole thing. I find it, well, the one thing I have used it for is writing the descriptions for my podcast. So, there's like a 3-sentence description that goes in the metadata, that you
Mhm.
see kind of deep in the menus. If you're a podcast listener, that is pretty formulaic, and I'm always really, really tired. I do that last.
Sure.
and,
Yeah.
and,
It's easy to do the wrong thing and just, yeah.
So I've been letting it do that, and I haven't used a single one without changing it, but it's a start, and it gives me something to work with.
Yeah.
So, and it's not that different when I was teaching social media. There were headline generators, back in 2015, based on,
Mm.
what research shown makes a good headline, and I told my students about those, and we would use them, and I used them sometimes, not always, but you can use it for things like that, and it's not even that different from the things we've had before.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, just a matter of, it's just more massive, and so the magic looks more
Mhm.
intelligent, I guess.
Yeah.
We have another question from the room, and if you have, we're not out of time, but it's gone very quickly, the first 3/4 of the show. So if you have a question for Mignon, please just pipe up in the chat, and we'll try to get to it.
Yes, this one comes from Neil. Neil, please go for it.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Mignon.
Hey.
So my question for you is, I wrote in the chat, is Grammar Girl versus Grammar everybody else. So you have all these books, obviously all your blog entries, and you just said you're basically a college textbook. You are a college textbook. So how do you think about, and Mark just showed, like, he pulls out other grammar and writing guides off his bookshelf. Do you think about trying to differentiate from all the other grammar books, authors, bloggers out there, or do you just do what you do and it works?
Yeah, I mean, I think I do what I do and it works, but I thought about this a lot when I started, when I became more successful than I expected to be in the beginning. Like, it's not like I mean, I'm not creating new grammar rules. Like grammar books already existed. There were already people who had newspaper columns who wrote about language and grammar. Like, why do people need me? Like it was, I just wondered. And I think, my publisher told me, and I came to agree that, it's just tone. People like different, like people like their information in different styles, and some people are going to gravitate toward William Sapphire, and some people are going to gravitate toward Grammar Girl, and there's room for everyone, and we all fill our own niche. So, or niche.
Like,
I covered that at some point. I don't remember what the answer is.
For the young people, for the young people in the room, William Sapphire was your grandfather's Grammar Girl. All right, go ahead, Neil.
And do you feel like, and also you're updating with the latest things. You talked about the latest AP style and stuff. Is there kind of a race to see who's ahead with all the updates?
I think because I do a weekly show, a weekly podcast, that I'm able to update, more quickly. Books are much harder. The AP style book updates every year. Chicago updates every few years. Most people, like I said, most people don't get to update their books. Like they'd be more likely to write a new book, which in retrospect, I wonder if I should have done that, seeing how much work it was to update all three. But, yeah, I think being current helps, definitely.
Mm-hmm. And you do a podcast, so you can certainly be, you can certainly be current without the books, where other authors maybe don't have that other avenue.
Yeah, there was a really important thing I wanted to say about AI is that if you use it to edit, this one thing you should always do is compare documents between your original and whatever you get out of the AI. I would never use it to edit without that step, because it can make changes that you don't expect. So that is like my most critical using AI to edit trick.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yes, great advice. Following up on Neil's question, who's out there that you read? Who's on your shelf? I don't know if you have like all the grammar books, or if there's some that you refer to more than others. Is where do I see?
Yeah.
I see.
I try to have all the grammar books. Garner's Modern English Usage I use a lot. Yeah. Chicago and AP, Merriam-Webster Dictionary of English Usage. Those are sort of my big four reference books. And then, I love June Casagrande's work. Her books are all great. Her punctuation book in particular, the best punctuation book, period.
Oh, you mean the one I was in?
Were you in that?
Yes, sure. I was on, and so was Aaron Brenner. We were on the punctuation panel for that book.
I didn't realize that. That's great. Yeah. It's a fabulous book. And, it's a little old now, but I really like Gretchen McCulloch's Because Internet right here, the yellow one. Roy Peter Clark is also a fabulous writer. His work.
This is all.
I think I just
Roy Peter Clark.
Yeah, I think I just filed mine away. I had him on as a guest on the podcast, but whenever I read his work, I take away useful information. Roy Peter Clark, yeah. We've had him on that word chat. His newest book is Tell It Like It Is. Right, clear and honest writing. Yeah. I feel bad. I'm sure I'm forgetting 1,000 people. Lynn Murphy, I love her.
Oh, sure.
US versus UK English. I know I'm forgetting a ton of people.
Oh, I'm sure. And there are so many, and that's the funny thing. I always think that, the books have all been written. What more is there to say? But it really is, you get a different focus, you get a different perspective. So yeah, I'm with you on having a full bookshelf of grammar related stuff, and it's always fun to read.
Yeah.
So are there more questions? We have a few more minutes.
I don't know if he's still here, but I saw in the comments that rolled by, there's someone here, or was someone here named Jerry, who is a Facebook friend of mine who I believe is coming all the way from Prague. I want to say a special hello and thanks for joining.
Oh, really? Oh, Jerry, if you're available and on camera, let's see how the reception is from Prague. When we put people on the spot like that, it's always like, oh my gosh. Well, good. Glad. It's getting quite late in Prague, 6 hours ahead now. Or I think 6, maybe 7. I think we do have one question, I see.
We do. This one comes from Rachel. You want to unmute and ask?
Yes. Hi, Mignon. I'm wondering, I've noticed that in a current project I'm working on, I will get stuck on how to use a word, and I'll go to Merriam-Webster and they don't really answer it. Then I go to Chicago and they don't really answer it. Then I go to Grammar Girl, which I should have done in the first place. You answer it perfectly. And I guess my question is, how is it that you get the usage like so often when I'm looking for the right usage, you have it and the other ones don't, and I don't know why.
Oh, I love to hear that. Thank you so much. I think that a lot of times I'm answering listener questions. So people are asking me their questions about how do I use this word? And then I go to all these different sources and sort of I'm trying to build a big picture of any specific usage or question. And so whereas one source might say one thing and another source might say another thing, I'm trying to look at what everyone says and then give people practical advice about how to use it or how to solve the usage problems that they're having in their writing. So I think it's because I'm taking that. I mean, I'm sure Merriam-Webster and dictionary.com, they're taking a writer user approach too. Like they care about how people use their work, but they're defining, and they have usage notes, which are often super helpful, but their primary job is defining. And I think my primary job is answering people's usage questions and helping them solve writing problems. So it's probably, a function of focus and goals. Yeah.
You mentioned Merriam-Webster's English usage. This is like one of the earlier ones because you know it is because this is Webster's and not Merriam-Webster's after they decided they needed to protect the brand, so they started calling everything Merriam-Webster's. I find this holds up really well.
Yeah.
And this is getting quite old, and some books I would say at this point, they're not going to give you what you want, but this one I think is very that one holds up, and of course.
And I think I heard they aren't planning on making a new one, and that's just crushing because it's such a valuable book. But I understand that of it are hard.
Yeah, I mean to do that. I mean this is sort of a one-person book, really, and to put the effort into doing that again, that would be maybe someday somebody will take it on, and then of course
maybe ChatGPT will write it.
Oh no, it's a scary idea, and yet So I did ask. I think it's interesting that the limitations of ChatGPT. One thing I've discovered is that if it's something that's firewalled, if it's not available, then they have no idea. If you ask him to do something with AP style, it won't. At this point, it doesn't figure it out, even though there's so much out there public.
All this stuff. But actually a brand new thing is you can train it on your own data. So I uploaded my 2 old calendars, and it's a great way to see what you have said about something. And Erin Survey, who's been doing great work on AI for editors, brought up the idea that maybe in the future, every book will be sold with its own AI that was trained just on that book. And so that you could chat with the book essentially and see just what was said in that book. I think that's a fascinating idea.
That is a fascinating idea. I think a few people sort of shuddered at the prospect, but but yeah, it's really cool. And it's not, it's not taking something from nothing. It's using proprietary things that people built and just presenting it a different way, like an ebook is, or an audio book.
Like, it was great for, if any longtime listeners, so I loaded up all my stuff and then I said, what was the confetti incident? And it's this thing I mention over and over again in my podcast, but have never defined. And it knew that the confetti incident wasn't real. It knew that it was a humorous example I use in sentences. And then it had like everything I'd ever said. So Squiggly feels bad about the confetti incident. The committee took 2 months to decide who was responsible for the confetti incident. Like, the confetti incident harmed morale. It was like amazing.
Wow. And so this is, I'm sorry, was this just trolling the web, or was that fed in?
No, I uploaded the copy. I uploaded about 400 podcast episodes in the text of 2 of my calendars, and check a box that says they can't use it for training their model. I don't really trust them, but I figure they'll scrape it eventually anyway.
Yeah, right.
And
Yeah.
it's private, like nobody else can access it. It's just for me to use. So it's changing really fast.
Yeah, that is a very cool thing. And as you say, if it truly is, your own, you can upload and have your own information up there. You mentioned the calendar, so you did a calendar version of the 365.
But isn't it better to have a book that you can actually keep? Like, why tear out the pages and throw them away?
So we're not pushing a calendar. There's no plans for a new calendar.
No, I will never write another calendar because I hate the thought of people throwing it away. Find a book.
All right.
Forever.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. Are there last chance? Anybody have any questions that we missed? If not, those of you, I don't think we've done this before, but oh wait, I'm sorry. I just saw a query come up. Melissa Hellman, why don't you come on and ask your question? And we've got about a minute.
Okay, I will keep this quick. So you said you had 365 tips, but this coming year is a leap year. If you needed to add one more for leap years, what would you add?
Great question.
I think I would try to make it leap year specific. Actually, I'm really fascinated. The whole history of calendars, the Gregorian calendar, is so fascinating and weird. I did a podcast about it once and I don't remember the details, but like with the Ides of March, like every month has an Ides, but then there are like leap Ideses, or I don't remember the details. Super weird. I'd probably do something about calendars and their history.
Well, that makes sense. Was it hard did you struggle to did you come up with like 340 good tips and then think, oh, what else can I add? Or was it more like, I've got 500 tips and how do I cut it down?
Yeah, it was hard to cut it down. It was like, yeah, I could have done so many more.
Yeah. So there probably was a 300 and something. There was 366 on the list that didn't make it into
the. I have a document with like the leftovers, and a lot of those go in my email newsletter and things like that. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. All right. So since we're doing a party, if you're not on camera, you want to be on camera. I want to take a picture. I've never done this before, but I can get a picture of at least one page of people on Zoom. I can't get, if you're on the second page, sorry, but I'm going to get your picture. Wait a second. I have to do a screenshot.
Thank you for giving me a book launch party that I could do from my home. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Capture selected. Your entire screen. There we go. All right, everybody. If you got a book, you can hold it up. If you got a drink, you can hold it up. And which one's that? That's the daily. Yeah, that's the new one. Or you can wave or whatever. But I'm going to click the capture button, and it's on a 5-second delay. So, clicking capture for 4, 3, 2. All right, got it. Maybe we'll post this on the website so everybody can see it. Thanks so much for coming. We're going to do, I think we're we're a little bit up in the air. We're not always completely organized, but we're thinking of doing a special show for our patrons next month and taking off for December because people have December Christmas plans anyway. But we'll let you know. And thank you for coming. And we'll certainly be back in January because we have to do the annual Word of the Year episode. So that's always a big one. So thanks very much, everybody, and we'll see you soon.